Okay, I just want to speak to you trying to do your little business this morning. I just want to speak to you trying to take your children to school. I just want to speak to you trying to go get some little groceries. I just want to speak to that individual sleeping on his wonderful ideas. Can you give me some attention this moment, like in a few minutes, 10, 20 minutes? Can you give me your attention? Because we might just unwrap something great this very morning. Can you give me some good attention this minute? Yeah, this minute. Now, thank you for your attention. I want to ask you a question. Do you know the effect of creating an habit rewarding system? We know habits are strong, habits are great, especially if you're engaged in something positive. Habit really makes some good difference. Now, think of an habit that makes people to build more, to ship more product. Do you know the effect of creating such a system that rewards such consistency? Do you know the effect? Okay, welcome to HackerCard. This is not a podcast for motivation. This is a lab where builders, products, founders, and future investors come to understand how things are really made. Today's episode, you might want to ask, well, we're talking about a single number, the number 30. 30, how effective could be the number 30? And how that number, when executed relentlessly, could rewire the entire innovation system of a continent. I mean, let me ask you a question. What continent are you from? Asia? Whatever continent you're from. Well, I'm from Africa. So whatever continent you are, the number 30, I want to show you, just real quick, how the number 30 could really affect your continent, your location, or wherever you are. So now I want to go straight into the hypothesis that we founded at HackerCard. I want to go into the hypothesis of the number 30. Imagine this. 10 builders. Each one of these builders commit to shipping one product every 30 days. That's 10 products per year. That's 10 products per year already. Now do that for 10 years. You might want to do the multiplication. Let's say we exclude 2 months, right? So maybe 2 months for just time away from production, time away from development, time away from the whole build cycle. 2 months just to recalibrate, something like that. But now, 10 builders, each one of these builders commit to shipping one product every 30 days. That's 10 products per year. Now you do this for 10 years, for a decade. What do you get? Well, from a calculation from MasterCard, in summation we had 1,000 product launches. Now you have 1,000 product launches. Now this is not a concept. This is not a prototype. These products are shipped into the real world. It's not something you build halfway, you drop it in some GitHub repo and it all dies there, or you just drop into some Jupyter notebook and it all ends there. No. Far from that. 10 builders. Each one commits to producing one product every 30 days. That's 10 products per year. Now when you do this consistently for the next 10 years, for the next decade, we get 1,000 product launches. Not a concept, not prototypes, product shipped into the real world, real customers, real usage. You can, in real time, track metrics, usage, stuff like that. And here's what's radical. This isn't theory, right? Because we've seen this explored in some hacker houses in the West. We've seen this done, and we've seen the result. We've seen the profound result of these relentless build cycles. Now this is a product line for learning, innovation, and resilience. Because in this model, product becomes research, execution becomes education, failure becomes data. Now in Africa, we have this notion that I don't want to go to school, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. It's awesome because, well, sometimes I've been in that situation where I begin to think, what's the essence of going to the traditional school system? What's the essence? Whereby I don't get to tinker with certain things, I don't get to play with ideas, I don't get to play with and execute on ideas at a rapid pace, and I don't get to interact with people that build stuff together, because I think in when you bring in people with same passion, you can fire up a tsunami. You can fire up something humongous, right? But because of these questions, because of this little question we have in our mind, we don't see such happen, because when you release such a model, it's not just a product; it becomes a research, right? Execution, what I said earlier, becomes education, right? And failure becomes something you could learn from. Pile of data where people go, okay, with company X did this, company Y did X, and this was the result. How do we learn and bring something better beyond what they've done? Lessons. Failure becomes data to learn from. Now I want to go into the traditional R&D bottleneck. The traditional R&D bottleneck, right? Let's compare. In traditional R&D, a university lab might take 3 to 5 years to publish a single paper. Come on, that's too slow. Well, let's keep on going now. Now, a government-backed innovation hub might spend millions with 1-2 outcomes. That's the most terrific. Whereby you have the government. Sometimes you don't want to rely on the government in doing certain things. You don't want to rely on the government in pursuing certain innovative concept. You just want to just do it alone. Except with some external folks that want to go in that grand cycle with you. But then just compare the numbers. A university lab takes 3 to 5 years to publish a single paper. A single paper. That's horrible. Now you talk about the government-backed innovation hub. This guy spent millions, and all they get is just 2 outcomes, 1 or 2 outcomes, 1 or 2 outcomes. All bad, very bad, man. Now you have multinational. Now a multinational may sit on patents for a decade, 10 years, 10 years, 10 years. On Twitter recently, I was just scrolling and I saw someone. He quoted Nikita Bai, Nikita Bai, and he said what she told him was this: that every single year in your 20s is equivalent to $1 million, to $10 million rather. Every single year in your 20s is equivalent to $10 million. Now that should tell you the importance of your 20s. That should tell you how important you should craft out your time in dedicating to improving yourself, in building stuff that really go beyond you, in changing your environment, changing yourself, changing the way you see the world, the way people will perceive the world. Now imagine a 22 years old shipping in public on Twitter. Such an individual could build 12 products a year. And such an individual could learn more about user behavior, feature adoption, and economic friction than an entire think tank. We've seen across the world that people most often engage in talk, talk, talk. But the most set of people that kind of really change things around themselves are those that have this ratio, whereby the ratio of talk to execution is 1:5, 1:10, 1:40, something like that. The ratio of talking to execution, whereby you only talk once and you execute in tenfolds. Your ratio of talk to execution is 1:10. These are the kind of folks that really do stuff that changes the things we see around us. Now poke your hand into the universe this way and it portrays this in the other hand. Like what Steve Jobs said, Now, this is what we call the R&D inversion, whereby you're inverting the whole concept of R&D on its head down. Such very funny. Is it here? It's not top down, but bottom up. They're like inverting it. The R&D inversion. It's not capital intensive, but builder efficient. Not slow innovation cycles, but 30-day sprints, repeated until clarity emerges. Clarity until clarity emerges. I was just thinking about a 22-year old. A single person sits in his basement and builds product for the next 12 months. Every month he releases a product. But also I was saying, okay, no. Let's exclude 2 months from it from the whole year. 2 months. So you only build product for 10 years, for 10 months. And each of these 10 builders release each product each 30 days. Imagine the effect it will have when you're talking about 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. Imagine the effect it will have on a whole continent, probably even in the world. Now here we're going to the 10-year effect. That's the next section, the 10-year effect. The 10-year effect. Let's stretch the math, right? I was saying that earlier. If 10 builders stick to the 30-day cadence, right? Year 1, we have 10 builders, and each of them release 10 products. Now you do multiplication across a year, you get 100 products, excluding 2 months, so 100 products. Now you go to year 3, 300 products. And these products are not just products, but they are data-backed experiment, because you release a product, 300 products. You don't just have a product, you have an experiment. And that's the awesomeness of startups. That's the awesomeness of startups. Whereby you don't just try once and you stop. No. You try multiple times. You're running multiple experiments to see what could be the perfect outcome. There's this man, I've forgotten his name. He did 1,000 experiments to find out, okay, what worked. And only on the last trial, he got the perfect experiment. But then when he was asked, okay, blah, 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 what have you learned in your failures and successes? He said, okay, I've learned 909 ways this thing wouldn't work. And that's the effect of startup, because a real startup, a real building environment, a real building hub, want to ensure to do this, whereby you're not just building product and you go down the valley, but rather you're up and down, experimenting, trying different views, trying different perspectives, trying different opinions to see what works. Trying multiple, because either the person that will work on multiple folds, try multiple perspectives, in short time, it gets a result that will take 14 years, 2 years, 4 years to get in short time. Excuse me. Now, in the fifth year, 50 successive, let's on assumption, in the fifth year, 50 successive pivots, 10 breakout products. Now in the 10th year, we have 1,000 shipped product, tested product, and iterated product, because these are products you've iterated on, you've worked on, you've improved on feedback of customers and something like that. But now I want to tell you something different. Here's where it gets powerful, and I call that the pattern recognition. The pattern recognition. We call that the pattern recognition. Pattern recognition. At this moment, after you've released 10 products, you've done certain number of experiments, X in the hundreds of experiments, you can now know what sectors are responsive to MVPs, minimum viable product. What sectors in your continent? I'm talking across continents now. I'm not just talking about Africa. I'm not just talking about being Nigeria or Congo or Ghana or something. I'm talking about worldwide. You're talking about someone from China. We're talking about someone from the US. You're talking about someone from South Korea building product in their different hubs and different hack houses. That's what we're talking about. At this moment, you begin to find pattern recognition. You immediately know in your varied nation, in your varied locations, you automatically just know what sectors are responsive to MVPs, minimum viable product. At that moment, you know which customer problems recur across regions, occurs or keep on is repetitive across regions. And you know what? Monetization models are culturally intuitive. You don't want to miss out on that. Where it's not just about building product, it's about also cashing in on the product you build. It's about in getting some monetary returns on the product you build, right? And at this moment, you also know what fails instantly, and you know why they fail. You know why they fail. You don't get these thoughts in some business schools, But we're not running a business school here. We're just trying to tell you, running an experiment in multiple times gives you data backed. Data backed fact. You're not just talking out of head. But you're talking real stuff. You're talking essential stuff, stuff that can really, really help. Now this becomes your continent innovation corpus. Imagine you have a database of multiple experiments you've run across different hubs. You've seen what works, what doesn't work, what monetization models are intuitive. You've seen problems that of customers that recur across regions, and you've seen what ideas, what method of implementation fails instantly. This a lot of data to work with, lot, and it could really help. Now you have an open source archive of practical intelligence. At this moment, R&D, that's the research and development of that particular continent, is become by the people and for the people, whereby you're experimenting with real life occurrence, real life experiment, like real life experiment, not just some simulated outcome. You're not just getting simulated outcome, brother. You're getting real life things, real life. I will say once again, this is the blessing of startups. We've seen it. It has unfolded in Y Combinator. It has unfolded in some parts of the world, and really, I do believe you can really experiment this thing. You can really implement this thing in wherever you locate it. It doesn't matter what continent you come from. We're just saying this works. The number 30 works. And HackerCard is going to prove that experiment. Actually, we want to an experiment. We want to try this out. In this place from Africa, I want to try it out. Relentless build cycle of 30 days to see what could happen. What could come out. Gather some builders, passionate, cracked men, people that are not just looking at what they want to gain, but then just want to impart the world with whatever they have. Such kind of people. You bring them together. Want to see what could pan out in Africa, right? Now we're talking about in the next session right now. We're talking about reward implications. Reward implication. Let's talk ground level impact. Now there are a lot of sectors we believe could be impacted with this mode of development. There are a lot of sectors we believe will be changed because of this mode of experimentation. Now, education becomes product driven. Instead of learning theory, students build real tools. And that's the kind of environment I want to be in, whereby you build real things. You don't just go to learn theories. You don't just go to prove why X is equal to Z, but rather you're going to prove why if I apply X in solving a certain problem, it gives me an outcome of Z. That's the kind of learning you want to go for. That's the kind of environment education becomes. Now think of it. Policy. Policy becomes data informed. Government now see free friction points across a thousand real product launches. Policy becomes responsive, not bureaucratic, right? Responsive, not bureaucratic. Capital allocation evolves. Investors start funding velocity and consistency, not charisma. Not charisma. Your portfolio is your product shipping history, right? Actually, well, let's keep on going. Let's keep on going. Now we'll talk about it. Now the last thing that you look at now will be now the cultural mindset shift. Failure isn't now at this moment. Failure isn't become. People don't see failure as a stigma. Iterations. You failed once. Okay, you iterate. Okay, you build a product. You iterate again. Iteration becomes identity, and the fear of bidding dies because of the stigma we place to failure in certain communities in the world. People are scared to try some things. But now, when you credit people for building things, experimenting despite their failures, but you credit them, you say give them thumbs up for building things, you encourage hands-on experiment, you try stuff rather than because okay, rather than clamping on people because they maybe had a single shot, you clamp on them, you kind of scold them out. You just squeeze them because of make little mistake. No, no. If we kind of flip it on its head and say, okay, rather than scolding you, we embrace you. Keep on making experiment. Keep on try some little more stuff to see what will come out. There'll be a cultural mindset shift at this moment. No more stigma for failure, but rather it becomes an identity. Iteration becomes identity, right? And that's one of the cool things I love to see. I love Hakaka to build by God's grace. Yeah. Sorry. Now, the next session we're going to look at is what needs to exist. What are the things we need to see exist, right? To make the effect of 30-day real, 30 number, to make the effect of 30 real, we need infrastructure. Nobody can doubt that. We need infrastructure. We need one, the builder stack. Toolkits that reduce the time from idea to product under 5 days. Templates, local builders, public launch system. And I think I found in one of my issues of recent, I released some few platforms that you could use in launching productive builds. One of them I listed was Tiny Launches. Tiny Launches, you could check that online. Tiny Launches. The other one was Indie Hackers. This is a platform that helps you build your product, release it on those platforms, and you get instant usage, you get instant feedback. And the last one I think I'm very cognizant of is Product Hunt. Now these are indie platforms that really help whoever wants to build stuff or experiment get his hand dirty. And another thing that will need to exist if we want to see the effect of a 30-day sprint possible is a public 30-day sprint whereby something like this is organized by HackerCard, whereby we track builder progress, we invite public visibility, and we reward consistency. Just trying to create programs whereby for 30 days we have people in a house and they just keep on building stuff until the 30th day and they pitch the idea. Now, not because they are pitching the idea, but because of what? The consistency in building, right? And we also have something like an open R&D dashboard whereby every product shipped logs their metadata, something like the industry, the stack, the region, the user response, pivot notes, something like that. And we have an open source insight for new builders to stand on. People are just coming in. You have an open source insight for people to just, okay, what has been done before? You have a whole foray of data to work with. And lastly, you have something like the microfunding system. Most of the times what we see across the world is in funding, micro grants are given because you can pitch an idea. You can prove to an investor why he or she needs to give you certain X amount of money, which is sometimes flawed. The right mindset to look at this thing will be, okay, you get funded for reading, not for the pitch, right? Whereby we become angel investors who have it. We fund you because you are consistent at building things, not because you just want to pitch idea because you could think of an idea and create a pitch deck on it. No. We want to invest in because you are consistent at building things, tinkering things together, what can work, what couldn't work, something like that. This is not startup. The outcome of this is our next section. The outcome of this is not about startup. It's not about startup at all. Now, this is about unicorns. Y Combinator has set itself aside from every other accelerator in the world. Why? Because it's more than just them creating startups, but rather it's about them creating unicorns. It's about them creating an infrastructural level whereby Y Combinator has been able to for the past 20 years. Y Combinator has been able to separate itself and, in a greater sense, creating a level layer of exposure to, okay, let's say a new founder came, they have this level layer to see, understand, and in fast mode do stuff by interacting with people that have done before. Now imagine when 1,000 products are tested in 10 years. You don't get one winner at all. You don't get that. You build collective immunity to stagnation. Either in your continent, either in your region, either in your location. You build collective immunity to stagnation. You generate generational knowledge on how to build what matters. What matters. This becomes the foundation for local supply chain problems. For local supply chain platforms, right? Local supply chain platform, real-time education system, indigenous fintech innovations, and all. Well, certainly, I do know and I believe that we can change the world. If we set ourselves by thinking, if we set ourselves by taking action, we, from anywhere in the world, can change the world. It's this moment you realize that by poking the world in this end, and it protrudes in the other end, you know, oh man, I can really do something that really affect myself and people around me positively, not negatively this time, but positively. So once again, this is HackerCard, where we don't worship startups, but rather we study systems. The effect of 30 isn't a framework, it's a weapon. A weapon, a weapon, a weapon. Keep that, it's a weapon. A new form of distributed innovation where every builder becomes, by force, every builder becomes a researcher, right? A researcher. Now imagine this. This will be your thoughts for the day, for the week, for the month, if that is, Imagine this. If 10 builders ship 10 products every year for 10 years, what happens isn't just innovation. What happens is sovereignty. At this moment, you begin to see continent improving, nations begin to improve. I mean, there's this not competition against yourself, but competition with yourself to become the best you can be. Everyone begins to evolve. Evolve. You want to change. At this moment, you want to change. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Pardon my sneezing a bit. I'm kind of dealing with some real cold here, but pardon my sneezing. But I want to ask a question. This last question before this podcast comes to an end. Do you want to change the fate of your nation? Right? It all starts with 30 days. 30 days of commitment. 30 days of consistent building. 30 days of relentlessness at doing whatever thing you can do to, on that 30th day, ship a product. It doesn't have to be perfect, but ship a product in 30 days. If you want to change the fate of your nation, you have to commit 30 days of building. You have to build something, and you have to repeat the cycle. Now that's all for this podcast. Thank you once again. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving us your time. Thank you for committing yourself to just give me your wonderful time and your ears. Really appreciate it. From HackerCard, we appreciate you. I'll see you in the next one.